Memoirs of Geisha.
For starter, who are geisha? Are they artists? Are they ordinary women? Do geishas sleep with their clients? Other countries, especially Philippines, doesn't even know what is geisha. Through this book or novel, it will help us to discover and experience some culture, traditions, and belief in Japan. How does the geisha viewed in their country? How do they become one? Are geisha respected in Japan? Can geisha have their freedom to choose the love of their life? And are you willing to be one of them? These are just some of the questions about the geisha. So first up, this book is one of the most beautifully written book, and it's very lyrical. Arthur Golden gave us this book with a great abundance of atmosphere, the mood and emotion. This is a fictional book or a fictional story, and Arthur used a captivating visual text. And here we can read the forbidden romance, a strict household, seeing a character building their way from the bottom. It was originally published on September 27, 1997. The language used was English and the genre was historical fictional novel. But who is Arthur Golden, by the way? Arthur Golden is an American writer. He is the author of the best-selling novel Memoirs of a Geisha, and he was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and was educated at Harvard College, where he received a degree in art history, specializing in Japanese art. And the reason why he wrote the Memoirs of a Geisha was that when he was living in Japan, he met a man whose mother was geisha. And he found it fascinating and ended up to be more curious about this topic. At that time, he was also interested in writing fiction. That was also the reason why it led him to write a novel about a geisha. But before we're going to educate and present to you about the content of the book, let's have a brief overview about what is geisha. And allow me this time to be a spoiler. So, when we say geisha, it refers to a well-respected traditional Japanese artist that entertains guests who attends during meals and also special occasions, using her beauty, charm, and also perform dance. She wears a beautiful patterned robes and paints her skin white and her lips red. They are also trained in the art of communication. And so much for that. This time, I will let you discover what is really a geisha, and my group mates will do that part.
Memoirs of Geisha. This movie, told in the first-person perspective, tells the story of a fictional geisha working in Kyoto, Japan before, during, and after the World War II. Next is the main characters. First is Sayuri Nita or Chiyo Sakamoto. She is the protagonist of the movie or the story. She tells the story on how she went from poor fisherman's daughter named Chiyo Sakamoto to become Sayuri Nita, one of Kyoto's premier geisha. With her piercing blue-gray eyes, Sayuri is beautiful, perceptive, and quick-witted. Her cleverness and adaptable personality allow her to survive a variety of challenging circumstances. Next is Toshikazu Nobu. He is a man in love with Sayuri. Next is Chairman Ken Iwamura. He is simply a chairman. Ken Iwamura is the gentle, dignified, and kind love interest of Sayuri. The chairman at first sacrificed a relationship with Sayuri in order to let his friend and business partner Nobu pursue a relationship with her. But when the chairman realizes that Sayuri feels as much love for him as he does for her, his love for Sayuri outstrips his loyalty to Nobu. After the chairman takes Sayuri as his personal geisha, he is Momeha, mentor to Sayuri and Hatsumomo's chief rival in Kyoto. She is a practical woman. Momeha believes that love for geisha is an impossible dream. Pumpkin grows up with Sayuri in the Okeya. Satsu Sakamoto. She is Sayuri's beloved older sister.
The plot summary of Memoirs of Geisha. In 1929, the 9-year-old Chei Sakamoto lives with her ailing mother, emotionally withdrawn father, and oldest sister Satsu in a small fishing village in western Japan. One day, the wealthiest man in her village, Mr. Ichiro Tanaka, takes notice of Chiyu's beautiful blue eyes. After striking a deal with Chiyu's father, Mr. Tanaka sells Chiyu to an Okeya, which is a boarding house for a geisha. Geisha are women trained to entertain men with conversation, dancing, and singing. Chiyu meets another young girl nicknamed Pumpkin, who she becomes friends with. The owners and the head of Geisha, Hatsumomo, who is beautiful but cruel geisha, quickly becomes jealous of Chei, seeing her as a potential rival and taunting beauty, and intimidate Chiyu into acting as her servant and doing anything she says. A few months after arriving in Okeya, Chiyu becomes so homesick that she tries to run away to her home village. The doors of the Okeya are locked at night, so Chiyu climbs to the roof, but she falls and breaks her arm. Over the next 2 years, under Mamiya's mentorship, Chiyu completes her geisha training and makes her debut as an apprentice geisha. Following the geisha tradition and adopting a new name, Chiyu takes on the name Sayori at a geisha name. As one of event, Mamiya introduced Sayori to the wealthy businessman Tachikazu Nobu and Chairman Ken Iwamura. Sayori realizes that Chairman Iwamura is the man who converted her years ago. However, Sayori doesn't get a chance to talk with the chairman because Mamiya tells her she must cultivate a relationship with Nobu instead. Mamiya wants to make Sayori a success in Kyoto by having Nobu and doctor named Dr. Crab start a bidding war over Sayori's miscarriage, the ceremonial taking of a young geisha virginity. After months of cultivating relationship with the two men, Dr. Crab ultimately pays a record amount for Sayori's miscarriage.
Theme. The theme or the message the writer trying to convey through the story The Memoirs of Geisha are: number 1. Self-determination. Sayuri, the protagonist of the novel, refers herself as a river throughout the book, a metaphor that reflects the conflicting forces of faith and self-determination in her existence. Number 2. Love. The predominant theme that we can find in the book or in the movie. In fact, love is what motivates Sayuri to eventually become a geisha. However, considering Sayuri's status as geisha, loving someone is not profitable, but in the end, she pursues her love for the chairman and end up being with him. Number 3. Destiny. In Memoirs of Geisha, destiny is seen as something that can't be changed. For Sayuri, destiny seemed to dictate that she had no other choice than becoming a geisha. At the end of the story, Sayuri realized that destiny is not as powerful as she believed it to be. Starting from that point, she starts to take matters into her own hands and try to make deliberate choices about her life.
What is the message of Memoirs of a Geisha?
Memoirs of a Geisha is an example of a masterpiece story. This novel is an interesting object to explore to get the hidden messages written in it. Geisha in this story are not a common prostitute. They are very young girls who are trained and has really intense education in histories, poets, arts, musics, singing, dancing, and many other cultural traditions. So they will attract someone wealthy and really rich to be her Dana, who will fulfill and support their need daily for the rest of their life. This novel, Memoirs of a Geisha, tells a story about the process and struggle from a famous geisha to survive during her hard life. So, according to Arthur Golden's message to the world is that geisha is also a human being who has feelings and is possible to feel love and fall in love. He tries to say that we found love by just looking at the eyes of a person and by telling a meaningful word that leaves a mark inside our heart.
Is this novel, Memoirs of a Geisha, related to post-colonial literature?
Memoirs of Geisha is an American novel that claims to write about the life of geisha in Japanese culture. The flow of the story is unpredictable. It is not only the life of geisha but also captures the real aesthetic of Japan. Memoirs of Geisha happened during and after World War II, so it is related to post-colonialism as it represents the culture and practices of Japan that was gradually changed after the American occupants and rehabilitation of the Japanese state. Post-colonialism is generally known as a term which analyzes power and political relations in countries administered by colonial power, so it is also related because of political issues. Example of this is the life of the poor, like Sayuri and her sister Satsu are sold by her family to Mr. Ichiro Tanaka, and they are oppressed because of their poorness. The political issues there is the slavery of the poor. Therefore, the novel Memoirs of a Geisha is related to post-colonial literature.
The Memoirs of a Geisha had a good literary piece. We know that through the literature, especially novel, man can get pleasure and enjoyment and also can learn and understand about many things in this life. Because all literature works has a close relationship with the society in the social life condition. They can influence the society attitude and life, and as a result of society, the condition can influence the development of the literature which is related to human life, such as a social life and the culture. As a literary work, the novel shows us the description and imagination about something. The novel also connects with many experiences of life. Literary works are one of the main things to take some reflection of human lives or even human experience. And it is done by the writers of the novel of Memoirs of a Geisha. We can see from the works of Arthur Golden how Arthur represents the true meaning of geisha very detailed, and to see how Arthur breaks up the meaning in geisha in order to differentiate the true geisha and a prostitute. Arthur describes that a geisha is not like a common prostitute. When there is a geisha, when there is a question about is a geisha is a prostitute or not, the answer is not as simply to say yes or no. We really need to flash back the geisha has been through to be a truly geisha, understanding and seeing what become the indicators to differentiate a geisha with a prostitute. Beside that, this novel is a very rich of cultures and old tradition of here Arthur tries to show as all the cultures and old tradition is done by geisha itself. Through all the heavy training to be a geisha, the school, education, and arts.
Is Memoirs of Geisha worth to read? Memoirs of Geisha is worth to read in a way that it teaches us lots of realization, information, and lessons in life. The memoirs of Sayuri and her journey are purely fascinating, and the whole story seemed realistic and bittersweet, that is definitely worth to read.
The Memoirs of a Geisha has a relevance to all readers all over the world. And we can consider it as a masterpiece. Every details makes an unexplainable imagination, and you can envision ourselves as readers in the story. Also, author tells us her story willingly and purposely, allows every reader to put themselves in her shoes as she tells us and tells you about the story, each step of her journey through life. This book has some advanced concepts and types, but I highly recommended this book to all ages, not just for young men, not just for old men, but all ages allowed to read. To witness about the book behind this story. Be kind-hearted so that one gets success. Number 2, hardworking. It results in victory. Number 3, loyalty. It will make dreams come true. And lastly, number 4, bravery. It will change your life.